I betrayed my best friend and I can't forgive myself. Betrayal is a hard word, isn't it? It clings to you like a shadow and whispers regrets in quiet moments. For years I carried the weight of a betrayal so deep that it destroyed the most important relationship I ever had, a friendship with a man who was more like family to me. We met as kids and were inseparable from the beginning. Sleepovers, inside jokes, the kind of connection where you don't have to talk to understand each other. This friend wasn't just my closest confidant, he was my rock. We grew up together. We weathered storms together. And I thought nothing could ever change that. But then I was proven wrong. A few years ago, I was drowning in my own chaos. Stress, anxiety, family expectations. It felt like I was living under a storm cloud that never wanted to subside. And my girlfriend, they were always there for me. They listened to me rant about things that probably didn't matter. Stayed up late to comfort me when I felt like the walls were closing in, and gave me the kind of unconditional support that many people dream of. And then one day they confided in me. It was something deeply personal, something vulnerable. I won't tell you what it was because even now, after all this time, it feels sacred. They trusted me with it, handed it to me like a fragile piece of glass jewelry, and I, without thinking, without realizing the magnitude of what I was doing, broke it. I told someone else, not a close mutual friend or someone who could offer advice, just an acquaintance, someone who was barely related to either of us. I don't even know why I did it. Maybe I was looking for validation, or maybe I was so tangled up in my own problems that I didn't see the consequences that came before me. When my friend found out, I could see the pain in her eyes. It was a raw, silent pain that pierced them deeper than words could. They didn't scream or confront me. They didn't demand an explanation. They just pulled away, and I let them. I wish I could say that I tried to make things right, that I apologized and asked for forgiveness, but I didn't. I was too proud, too ashamed. I told myself that it wasn't that bad, that we could move past it without broaching the subject, but I was wrong. This betrayal created a chasm between us, and I froze to one side, watching them drift further and further apart. Years have passed, but the guilt hasn't gone away. It creeps up on me at the strangest moments. When I see their name on social media, when I hear about something amazing they've accomplished, when I'm alone at night going over in my mind all the ways I could have done better. I've thought about reaching out hundreds of times. I've rehearsed apologies in my head. Imagine scenarios where we sit down and have a conversation where I pour out everything I've been holding inside. But then I think about the life they've built, the new friendships they've made, the happiness they seem to have found, and I hesitate. What right do I have to disturb their peace? What can I say that will erase the pain I have caused? Truth be told, I don't think I will ever stop regretting my act. But I also know that I can't continue to carry this guilt in silence. So here I am, confessing to the emptiness, hoping that maybe by letting it out, I can begin to forgive myself. If I could say one thing to my friend, it would be the following: I'm sorry. Not only for what I did, but for not being the friend you deserved. I hope you found people who treat you with the respect and care that I couldn't give. And if we never communicate again, I want you to know that I will always be rooting for your happiness. As for me, I don't know if I'll ever get rid of this guilt, but I'm trying. Trying to learn, to grow, to become a better person. Because if this experience has taught me anything, it's that trust is fragile, and if it's broken, you'll have to go a long, hard way to get it back. If you're lucky enough to get the chance, of course. Updated. Guilt was my constant companion, but life moved forward, even if my heart remained in the past. One day, as if out of nowhere, a name flashed on my phone screen. It was a mutual friend who had separated years ago. "Hi, just ran into Amber at a conference. They mentioned you. Said you were doing well." The message struck me like a punch in the gut. They mentioned me? After all these years? My thoughts raced. Were they angry? Nostalgic? Indifferent? For hours I stared at that message, phone burning in my hand. What did they say about me? What did they think of me now? Part of me wanted to ask, to open Pandora's box and finally get some clarity. But the other part, the cowardly part, wanted to keep it a secret. And yet that message stirred something in me. That evening, I sat down and wrote a letter. Not a text or an email, but a real handwritten letter. I laid it all out. Regret, apology, a desire to turn back time. I didn't sugarcoat it. I acknowledged my selfishness, my cowardice, and the pain I knew I had caused. It took me 3 days to finish the letter. Once finished, I sealed it in an envelope, but I couldn't bring myself to mail it. What if it resurrected old wounds they had tried hard to heal? What if they saw it and just threw it away? A few weeks later, another coincidence occurred. I was in a bookstore downtown when I turned the corner and froze. They were standing in front of a shelf and leafing through a book. My heart pounded so hard I thought they might hear it. Should I say something? Should I leave? Before I could decide, they looked up. Our eyes met. "Hi," they said cautiously, as if they weren't sure how to greet me. "Hi," I replied, my voice barely above a whisper. We stood like that for a moment, and the silence was heavy with everything we'd left unspoken over the years. Then, to my surprise, they smiled. It wasn't a wide smile, but it wasn't a forced one either. "How are you?" they asked, as if we were old acquaintances just chatting. The conversation was polite, superficial, work, family, news about life. But there was a sense of tension underneath the words, as if we both knew we were tiptoeing around a landmine. Just as they were about to leave, I muttered, "I owe you an apology." They paused, holding their hand over the bag. "For what?" I swallowed hard. "For everything. For breaking your trust. For not being the friend you deserved. I've carried that around for years, and I'm sorry." They stared at me for what seemed like an eternity. I braced myself for anger, for dismissal, for anything but what they said next. "I was glad to hear that," they said softly. "What happened hurt. Very much so. But life is too short to keep things like that in it. I forgave you a long time ago. I just didn't think you wanted to talk to me." I blinked, trying to comprehend their words. Forgave me? After all this time? We ended up sitting in a cafe on the next street over and talked for a few hours. It wasn't the same as before. There were still cracks in the foundation of our relationship, but it was a start. We talked about what had gone wrong, about how we had both changed over the years. When we said goodbye, I felt lighter than I had in years. I didn't know if we would ever be as close as we had been, but for the first time I felt the wound begin to heal. That night I tore up the letter. I didn't need it anymore.